And we are live streaming right now from my place called Trinity Mall. I'm in the food court looking at the backdrop right here. I'm going to just show you guys the movies that are out right now in the cinema. So let me show you what's up. We got Till Death Do They Part, Venom. We got Venom going on there. We got Absolution with Liam Neeson. Beetlejuice is still playing in the cinema. We got something else called Here. Wild Robot still going on. Alright, and Smile. So that's what's playing in the cinema right now. Where I am, at Cinemas 8. So, Beetlejuice is doing good. Shout out to Michael Keaton. Warner Brothers doing well with Beetlejuice. Smile is doing okay as well. Smile's been out in the cinema for a little while. So, when it comes to those things, I'm doing all right. Venom's doing okay as well. So, shout out to that. Shout out to all you guys in the background. With the status regarding Restore the Snyderverse, there's some noise in the background there, really noisy right now. But with regards to Restore the Snyderverse, recently, on Twitter, the only reason I'm not showing you guys Twitter today is because they're starting to slap copyrights on me for using Twitter now. It's crazy. People are crazy out there. So they're really trying to clamp down on my free speech. But with regards to Restore the Snyderverse, recently, hold on a second, let me just do this. Yeah, recently we Restore the Snyderverse. There was talk about how Zack Snyder, the Superman Zack Snyder that he did, how unique it was, And when you look at Man of Steel, literally that movie flows into BVS, and then BVS flows into Zack Snyder's Justice League, right? Because where the movie ends, for example, in Man of Steel, it picks back up in BVS, right? The beginning of BVS is the end of Man of Steel, right? And the beginning of Zack Snyder's Justice League is the end of BVS, right? The cool thing that Zack Snyder did was this is just insane how crazy these people are in this country. Just insane. I don't get it. Anyway. What was kind of interesting about that, and if you can't hear me, just hear me out, let me know if you can hear me or not. The cool thing about Zack Snyder's stuff is, and this guy is just so visually, he's just crazy, right? When you looked at the end of Man of Steel, we were seeing the end of Man of Steel from Cal's perspective, right? Fighting Zod. You can hear me? All right, cool. When you watch a Man of Steel, you were seeing it from Cal's perspective, right? From Superman's perspective. So we saw him fighting Zod, for example, and we were getting the view from Superman's perspective. When we began BVS, we were seeing this whole thing from a whole different perspective. we're seeing it from Bruce's perspective, right? Because we got Bruce's psychology at the beginning, you know, how he was redeemed by the bats and he thought he was brought to the light. And then we see him dealing with ultimate trauma, the death of people very close to him, his workers in Wayne Tower. And we're seeing everything from his perspective, looking up at the damage and the destruction that's happening because Cal's fighting Cal is fighting Zod, right? So we saw everything from Bruce's perspective. We see how fearless Bruce is to run into the heart of danger because he cares so much about these people. So basically, Man of Steel is really cool in that respect. And then BVS gives you this different perspective of things. And what was so cool about the end of BVS, which nobody really talks a lot about, and the beginning of Zack Snyder's Justice League is, again, you get this change in perspective. You see Cal die, and as he's dying, we see it from Wonder Woman's perspective, we see it from Lois Lane's perspective, we see it from Bruce Wayne's perspective. But more importantly than that, we also see the repercussions of his death. We see the mother boxes being activated. We see Lex Luthor hearing his death, because his death is so loud the whole world hears it, right? And we see these sonic blasts coming out of him as he screams. It's all slowed down, but nonetheless. And the repercussions of that for the mother boxes. So that perspective, literally that change in perspective is what drives the next movie. And to me, that's just brilliant filmmaking. So, you know, it's just cool to see these things. And I was discussing it on X or on Twitter. I like to call it Twitter. I don't like to call it X. And somebody named Cara Le Lacusta says films are memories, not fiction. Well, correct in a way. I think I understand what you mean. In that it is fiction. It is fiction. It is fiction that is done in films. But the difference is that with films, you'll find that, yes, I mean, films are images. So I guess in some respects, it's kind of like memories. But I also think that it's fiction. But fiction that's based on reality. So, like, for example, for our reality, you're watching a film, for our reality, the film reflects some aspect of our reality. I'm sure I like Zack Snyder's stuff. But I always thought the continuity of the films was just really dope because it's a different perspective. And the perspective drives the next movie. Like, everything was based around Superman's death in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Whereas, if you were looking at, for example, if you're looking at what happens with BVS, for example. BVS is all driven by what happened at the end of Man of Steel, right? The end of Man of Steel is what drives the story behind BVS, right? Because if you look at it, if all that collateral damage didn't happen, right? Superman would be a controversial figure. If Batman, that collateral damage didn't happen, Batman would have lost his family, or at least the people he worked with, and that's basically the crux. That's the center point of which BVS is based on. That this being is so powerful, and the collateral damage that happens, we need to get rid of him, or we need to control him, or we have to find a way to keep him in check. So that was what the whole BVS was about. And when you look at Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's all about the absence of Superman. Superman's so necessary. And now in his absence, this is what's happening, these repercussions with his people he's familiar with, his mother, his sister, his wife, his girlfriend, sorry, to be his wife, fiance, the world itself, you know. So how vulnerable it is and all of that, the league itself that Batman's trying to form. So it's built around the perspective and the different perspective now that we get to see, and that fuels the whole story, which is really cool what Zach did with those movies. And I think life is something like that, and even dreams are something like that. Our dream is built like one dream. You know, we have a series of dreams in the night when we sleep. And one dream's like built on one aspect of something, and then it flows into another dream, and that dream covers another aspect or another perspective on the same theme that we've been going through for the entire night. So you have a series of dreams, and the dreams all are thematically linked, but they're different aspects of that theme that are being explored, which is really interesting. I think film sort of catches that, and Zach's able to capture that in film and visually, which is what's so kind of crazy, because you know he can say so much visually that, you know, you be writing, just writing, or we just be discussing this, you know, for a very long time, you know. Anywho, I thought I would just cover how brilliant a filmmaker he is. And I know a lot of people are talking about it online. The Solar Snyderverse is a hashtag that kind of pops up all the time in entertainment in some way, shape, or form. And I thought, well, let me just speak on that before I go into some of the politics that I might be speaking about. Because as we all know, tomorrow is Election Day in the United States of America. Over the weekend, we had Halloween. And I think the day before Halloween, I think Halloween was the Thursday, I think the Wednesday for us in my country was Diwali, the Festival of Lights. It's a Hindu celebration. So we had Diwali, and then the next day was Halloween. And then all these things are interlinked, but you guys may not think of it that way, but they're all interlinked. I'll explain. So, for example, Diwali just means that light conquers darkness. It overpowers and overshadows darkness, and so they're like diyas in the night. And we are in an interesting time in history where it seems as if darkness is invading everything, you know. And it's just interesting that, thematically speaking, as we celebrate that, we're on the verge of either the world tilting in the direction of fascism as the empire, the Western Empire, falls, or the world being tilted back in the direction of freedom to some degree, and people being able to express themselves freely without any worry about some tyrant or some heavy-handed mafioso assassinating them for their views. And so we're going to see which direction that pendulum will swing. But I can say that it's an interesting time to be in. These elections are so very consequential in the United States because it will definitely instruct the policy of what goes forward. And I want to say right now that the duopoly, or the two major parties, the red and blue, are the same. I'll explain. So, for example, the blue party, or what is called the Democrats, believe it or not, they are white supremacist. It's under a white supremacist system. And no matter what rhetoric these people will say, they support white supremacy, the Democrats. In fact, I was doing some research and I found out that Mr. Joe Biden is actually a blatantly flaming racist. I didn't know that. I thought he was a decent guy, but he's not. And he's a warmonger. He loves war. Now, with respect to Kamala Harris, she's simply a black face of white supremacy. And I'll explain. It's very easy to explain it. If you look at what she's saying about Israel, Israel is a racist state. It's a Jewish supremacy. But the Jews, even the Jews are classed by the color of their skin. So European Jews get precedence over Ethiopian Jews, which is crazy. But even worse than that is the point that Kamala Harris, who's supposedly a black person, she's from Indian heritage. She's really East Indian. She's not really from African heritage. She has very little of that. But anyway, the point is, she has pledged to arm Israel. She says she will not stop arming Israel. Israel has a right to defend itself. And nobody wants to hear about a ceasefire anymore. People are past that. People are now wanting the United States of America, and this is the citizens of America, want the United States of America to stop arming Israel, period. Even Ilma Ohar, who is the Democrat representative of Minnesota, she has come out openly and said, this is not rocket science. Stop arming them, and that's it. They can't do anything. And so, right now, she is her policy going forward is to fuel the Israelis and arm them so they can carry out as many wars as they want. If you won't stop arming them, how do you expect to get a ceasefire? So, both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are hell-bent on seeing the Palestinians get wiped out. They don't have a problem with that. No matter what Kamala Harris says, they are both subservient to AIPAC and the Israeli lobby groups. And they are also subservient to corporate interests. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have gotten large donations from oligarchs and large corporations. But the Democratic Party has gotten even more donations than even Donald Trump has gotten. Donald Trump has gotten $200 million from one particular donor who wants to see the West Bank placed into Israel's hands completely. Not occupied anymore, but completely. Like all the Palestinians moved out and the West Bank completely owned and settled by Israel. Also wants it for East Jerusalem. That's one of his donors. Now, with respect to Kamala Harris, she has been a lifelong supporter of AIPAC. She's received, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, more than $5 million in AIPAC money. And so she's not going to rock the boat. That's not happening. So if you're speaking about free Palestine, a resolution for the Palestinian problem, none of these guys are going to address it. Now, another thing that they're not addressing, and we're not hearing it in the news enough, are the victims of Hurricane Helene, which had massive flooding. A lot of people have been displaced. They've lost their housing and homes. We're talking like $53 billion. $53 billion in wreckage, debt, not to mention loss of life. And the government has pledged $600 million, $750 to a family. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. And you're wondering to yourself, Israel's gotten $20 billion. $20 billion. And I believe recently, $20 billion for stockpiling of weapons and arms for a war in which they're ethnically cleansing people from their own land. And you have the audacity to tell me that you don't have money to take care of your own people who are suffering a catastrophe right now. Find it. So those two major parties are beholden, and in my country it's the same shit. They're beholden to corporate sponsorships, to businesses. Now, I am a businessman myself, okay? But I believe that there's a place for everything. Just like how in the United States of America, there's separation of church and state for a reason, right? This happened because of the Inquisition, right? The Great Inquisition, in which people were burned at the stake. And, you know, there's the saying that witches should be burned. Yes, okay, fine. But when you're not even a witch, you're just somebody with a different perspective on things. And as a result of that, you're labeled a blasphemer and a witch by the church, which was running things back then. And you're burnt at the stake for that. That's kind of crazy. So to prevent that, in the United States of America, they have the separation of church and state. And people say, well, that's a terrible thing. Well, it could be a terrible thing. As well as if you think about it, just imagine if the state was the church. Then their final say on things is what it is. And it doesn't matter that that's not the truth. And so that's a dangerous thing in that respect. And so I mention that because there's a separation of church and state for a reason. Besides that, and similarly, as there's a separation of church and state in America, there should be a separation of donors and lobbyists from politics. It's corrupt when somebody can pump money into a campaign and pump a whole set of money into a campaign and buy out a candidate or buy out an election. There's something very corrupt about that. And it's been happening. And AIPAC, it boasts about that. I think that if I were to be honest with you guys, and I've said it before, I think what you need to do, your role in this whole thing is very simple. And I'm going to say it again so you can hear me. If you are a citizen of any country, and I pledge, in my own country, I pledge to vote third party. I'm not voting for the two major parties anymore. And I think that you as Americans, especially on the verge of an election, it's very important that you buck this system and take back the power into your own hands, in the hands of the people, not in the hands of corporations. Corporations are great. Don't get me wrong. When they stay in their place, when they do their role. It is very dangerous when corporations are taking over elections and being able to buy out candidates, buy out votes, because now they have more leverage and more say. They already had leverage and say before that, right? We saw Wall Street be addressed and bailed out by Barack Obama. Ludicrous. It's the private sector. And you, as people of the United States of America, you're not bailed out. Ever. You've never been ever bailed out. Ever. So you work hard to give up $2.2 trillion in taxes. $2.4 trillion in taxes. Right? Of which 1.3 trillion goes to Wall Street and to the military complex and to other special interests. Why? They're hardly paying taxes themselves. Why is it you have to pay all this money and suffer so much for wars you never asked for? For pharmaceuticals that kill you? For a Wall Street that doesn't care about you and exports labor abroad? Think about that. Capitalism is good. I'm part of a capitalist society. I, myself, I'm a businessman. But when the business community is not punching back in and pumping back in money and resources to the people from which it benefits, it has become a parasite. And it is a danger to the very people that made it what it is. And that's the problem. Capitalism can work if it feeds back in to the communities from which it extracts its profits. It is not enough for a business to make profit. It must also effect change in which it can make more profit. Meaning, you must be able to invest back into the very system that you benefited from, to sustain it and keep it sustainable. And that's what they're not doing. And there are a lot of deceptive and there are a lot of deceptions where they will claim they're giving back to the system, but really they're exploiting the system, and they're actually not putting back in. They're half-heartedly putting back in things, and they're putting back in destructive things to destroy the communities which actually supply it with the resources and stuff. And they don't realize by destroying the communities and by killing off the people, you're killing off your future as a company. Now, I'm telling you guys, it's a third-party option. You have 4 third parties you can look at. Actually, yes, 4. You have Chase Oliver, who's a libertarian, Cornel West, Jill Stein, and you have Claudia de la Cruz. Claudia de la Cruz is a socialist. Chase Oliver is a libertarian. Cornel West is a progressive. And Dr. Jill Stein, she's sort of a progressive herself. My point being, all 4 of these people are against what is happening in Palestine. I do not know what your views are on Palestine, but most of you that I've seen, once you're not the IDF, which comes to my channel at times, most of you, including, I'm not going to exempt, my friends in Israel, who have now become somewhat vocal in Tel Aviv, finally. I've seen them make news. Some of my friends in Israel are of the same view as myself and as many of you. Many of you want to see a ceasefire. That's one. Many of you will want to see the hostages on both sides freed. That's 2. And many of you also want to ensure that justice is served and that the Palestinian people, some of you support Hamas, some of you don't support Hamas, some of you, but at the end of the day, y'all want to see peace. Y'all don't want to see a war. Y'all don't like wars. And I appreciate all of you that are anti-war. Those of you who are anti-war and think that war does not bring anything else but suffering and pain, both for the military soldiers and both for the people who are victims to that war, who are innocent of any crime doing, then you need to vote for a third party. It is time that third parties are looked at seriously. Not just in America, all around the world, including my country. I am tired of the same rhetoric and seeing a revolving door of the same people who are coming to represent us, and they don't do a good job. They do a poor job of representing us. It is time for someone new. It is time for a new face. If you feel like this, then I would suggest to you guys that tomorrow, when you go to the polls, if there's a write-in name and you don't see the candidate, the third-party candidate, like I said, here are the third-party candidates. There's Cornel West, Chase Oliver, Claudia de la Cruz, and Dr. Jill Stein. Those are 4. There are only 4 presidential candidates like that. They have representatives in different states and stuff. You can vote for them if they want to vote for Congress, whatever. But the point I'm making is this. It's time you guys took the power into your hands. I don't want to say anything more. I don't need to say anything more about this, except to say, you have the power. You don't have to be a Muslim. You don't have to be a young person. You don't even have to be somebody who's sympathetic of Palestine. You may be somebody who's saying, man, we need to get better payment. I see the unions striking in America. They don't want to strike, but they're striking because the conditions under which they're working and the companies are doing very, very well, and they're not getting paid. They're not getting pay raises or anything. 40% pay raises for executives of General Motors and those automotive companies in Detroit. And the workers only get point something percent increase. I see it in my country. They don't want to give more than 5% to the workers, but the managers and the executives, they're getting 30 and 40% raises. It's the same nonsense happening in my country. It's not right. The people who do the bulk of the work, the people who slave day in and day out, they're not slaves. They're loyal. They're honest people. They should be compensated. And I say this to say, we've had decades of Democrat in America. We've had decades of Republicans in America. And here we are. The situation's not better. It's time to choose something different. It's time. So you guys should seriously look at third parties as an option tomorrow and vote for one. Don't vote for the RNC. Do not vote for the DNC. These are corporate-backed, corporate-serving parties. No matter who comes in front of there, you could say it's Donald Trump. You could say it's Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders is a part of the DNC, he's not going to be able to do the things he really needs to do as an independent or as a third party. But third parties are not obligated to corporate interest because they don't receive money from corporate interest. They receive money from you, so they answer to you. Okay? So go vote third party this election. Vote tomorrow, if you're voting tomorrow, or third party. Get the major parties. They are governed by a machine. They have their own media outlets. They have their own funding outlets. They do not operate. You have very little to do with it. You're just playing around. You're just pawns for them. They have their machinery to make things happen. It doesn't matter if Trump was to go there or Kamala Harris, it's just as bad. The situation is going to be just as bad. The police brutality in America is the same under Trump and under Kamala Harris. In fact, it increased under Kamala Harris. The deportation of people from the United States has increased under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It hasn't decreased. The censoring of people and free speech has increased under Kamala Harris and under Joe Biden. And it's only going to increase if you bring back Donald Trump because they're all following the same game plan. They just speak differently. Donald Trump is just more open about the white supremacist racist comments. Whereas Kamala Harris and Joe Biden will be more subtle in how they say things. It's the same people, same game, same play, people. I'll tell you the truth. They're afraid that Jill Stein would win this election, or that her party would become a third party in the electoral process. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of Jill Stein. Because Jill Stein speaks the truth. That's why I advocate for as many of you as possible to vote for Jill Stein. Because she really is talking things that can be delivered. Bernie Sanders used to say that, but he sold his soul to the DNC. Now he's apologizing for genocide. It's sad. Watching AOC say the same thing is sad. The only people who are staying consistent are Mr. Bowman, who has been kicked out of office, and also Ilhan Omar. She's been consistent. She's a Muslim. She stands her ground. I really wish she would join the Green Party and just let go of the DNC, because she should just leave them and go with the Green Party, or go with Cornel West or one of them, you know. But particularly the Green Party, because they're more organized than all of the other third parties out there. They actually have machinery that could actually they could win this election. If you guys decide, screw it, I'm going with the Green Party, That's it. They're going to win. Because people who are followers of Donald Trump and people who are followers of the DNC, when they hear Jill Stein speak, they're willing to vote for her. It's just her word, the word hasn't gotten out enough. She's the real deal. You know, I don't know if she'll live to the end of her term. Yeah, but she's the real thing. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. I am Christ, I am disciple. Hope you guys have a blessed day. You guys are good. Enjoy the films, enjoy the entertainment, enjoy life. Life is short and fleeting. I've had about 4 or 5 friends that have passed away. None of them are at the age of 50, and they're dead already. And that happened within the space of a couple months. So guys, those you love, go see them. You know, it's devastating what's happening to the people in Palestine and the Palestinians, even the Palestinians in America, whose families, you know, tens of 20s to 100 family members dead. You know, for what? They didn't do anything wrong, you know, and that's just evil. And we have to try the best we can to stop that from happening in Palestine, in Lebanon, and even on our shores. Even if fascism is done abroad, believe you me, it's going to be done on American shores, and it already showed its ugly head with the protests on college campuses. And we see now the police being even more brutal, not just to black people, not just to minorities anymore, but to white people as well. They're now starting to kidnap people, put them in prisons, lock them up in jails, absolutely no reason. And from what we see, how they're talking about anti-Semitic laws, draconian anti-Semitic laws that are not anti-Semitic to start with. And even the fact that they're hunting down now and trying to shut down social media people, prominent social media people highlighting the ills of Palestine. And they're even trying to shut down right now. When I say shut down, I mean threaten, their lives threatened, you know, and stuff like that. Trying to really bully people using, you know, mafia methods to bully people into not telling the truth. You know you're in the wrong when you have to bully people, when you have to try to censor them, when you have to try to kill them, cut them off from expressing themselves. If that wasn't so dangerous, what they were doing to what your empire is, you wouldn't be coming at them and targeting people. But they're trying to target, you know, the people, thinking they could shut this down. And all it does is it just puts fire under the people's belly. And people are realizing, because the Palestinians are resisting and standing up so much, people are realizing it doesn't matter if they die or live, this is something bigger than themselves. And they're going to keep on pushing for it. So that's how I feel about it. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. For those of you wanting to see what the place looked like, this is Trinity Mall. This is a video game place. That's Galactica. And I was right behind it. They play a lot of games. A lot of video games going on in there. We got the cinema right here, the Cinemas 8. Let me show you some of the upcoming films that's coming up on Cinemas 8. And we have a food court, so there's a lot of stuff that's Chinese. We have Caesars. I ate some Caesars. Subway down there. The whole place right there. KFC over the corner there. Well, I don't want to film too much because, you know, people don't like to get themselves filmed. Some people do, but most people don't. So coming up, April 4th is this. I guess it's a horror movie. I don't know what this is. And then you got Snow White. Walt Disney's going to be putting out Snow White next week, here in March. Snow White. And of course, there's a black lady playing Snow White. And then we're going to have Sonic the Hedgehog Part 3. Sonic the Hedgehog Part 3. You know what I'm saying? Also, we're going to have Kraven the Hunter, Marvel film. Marvel's coming out with another one right there. And then we have Lord of the Rings. This is going to be an animated feature. The War of Rohirrim. Yeah. Lord of the Rings. They're going to do it as an animated feature this time around. So that's kind of dope. And we have here Wicked. which is The Witch, Everyone Deserves a Chance to Fly. So that'll be coming out sometime next year as well. Gladiator 2. I thought this came out already. Guess not. Thought it did. Anyway, Gladiator 2. I thought that came out already. And then you have Missing, Red One. Red One is about Santa Claus, but it's kind of like a espionage thriller comedy. It's right there. So should be cool, man. So that's what's coming out in cinemas this year. There's some other movies coming out this year. Yeah, so if you guys are looking forward to any of these stuff, I think Sonic the Hedgehog 3 should be good. I hope it is. I've never actually watched any of the Sonic Hedgehog. Alright, people, so I gotta get out of here. So, oh, it's raining, boy. Oh, it's raining. I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys have a blessed day.